So just heads up that I'm recovering from a flu. I mean, I'm not even recovering. I am suffering currently with the flu. So if I sound like I'm talking through my nose, that's because I am. So I apologize for that. And thanks for bearing with me. I promise the content will be much more pleasant than my voice today. So that's just a little bit of a heads up. Okay, so let's kick off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to ckan Monthly Life number 34. We're happy to have you with us from all the different time zones. Today, we will explore a very powerful example of ckan in action, the Transport Data Commons portal, a shared data platform designed to support global collaboration in the transport sector. It was developed by Transport Data Commons in collaboration with Datopian. So you'll get a live walkthrough of the portal and insights into the technical and collaborative decisions. I am pleased to introduce our speaker, Nicolas Becker. He's a data specialist at GIZ, and also he's a data group lead at the Transport Data Commons initiative. He will introduce himself and he'll talk more about the project. But before that, let's see what's lined up for today. As usual, we have the welcome and introductions. This is me right now talking. After that, we'll have a presentation from Nicolas. After that, we'll open the floor for some Q&As. And then if there is some news or somebody wants to share something, we have community announcements and sharing before we go to the closing remarks. Now, a few housekeeping items. We have a meeting doc document, which I will post in the chat and I'll pin. So this is our single source of truth document. You can open it. You can add your name, organization, what brings you to ckan. And this document is also your go-to place for agenda ideas or future meetup suggestions. As you know, we are always on the lookout for interesting projects to showcase. So yeah, I'll drop the link right after my intro is over. There are two ways to ask a question. You can raise your hand and go ahead if you're feeling bold. If not, if you're feeling chill, you can just drop your question in the chat and I'll read it for you. Before I give the mic to Nicolas, let me remind you that we have a ckan monthly newsletter. It's available on our... Actually, you need to subscribe for it, obviously. You can do it on our website or on yeah, we don't spam. It's just the highlights of things. So yeah, check it out. As always, the session will be recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and all relevant links will be in our shared meetings document and also under the video in the description. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive in. And Nicolas, the floor is yours. I will stop sharing right now, and then you'll be able to share your screen.
Thank you.
My voice is over. Yeah, thanks for bearing with me.
Doesn't sound that bad. Wishing you, of course, a quick recovery.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Joanna, for the introduction, and thank you, of course, for having me today. I'll try to share my screen. Hope this works. Not a problem. So you should be seeing slides. Seems to work. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, as Joanna introduced, my name is Nicolas Becker. I'm working at GSZ, that's the German Development Corporation, as a data specialist in the transport and climate change team. So here I'm working on different projects, but most of them are related to data and AI solutions to bring the transport sector towards a sustainable future, mainly in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So on one hand, on the other hand, I'm here today, of course, in my role as a lead of the data working group, so to say, of the Transport Data Commons Initiative. So the idea would be to walk you through the initiative, what the TDC is, what is our vision, our goal, give a brief insight of what the portal is currently looking at, or at what stage we are today. And if the time allows, maybe we can also say a few words about where we're heading to in the future. So I suggest I begin by splitting or breaking the name of Transport Data Commons Initiative down into its components to explain a bit where this came from. So to begin with, I'll talk why the transport sector is of particular interest to us. So on the one hand, of course, this is a sector that I think each and every one of us has some kind of expertise on, because transport or mobility, let's say, is basic good we consume in our daily life. So even if this might have changed a bit during the pandemic, I think most of us still commute to work at least once a week. We go grocery shopping, we visit families on the weekends. So all of this is consumption of mobility, and somehow gives us insight about how the transport system works. And of course, depending on our habits, on the transport modes we use, this all is reflected in what I'll show next. So what you see here is a projection based on the ITF scenario mapping of how the transport sector is evolving in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, or more specifically CO2 emissions. As you see, the transport sector is one of the few sectors whose emissions are increasing more or less constantly around the globe. And more specifically, you see here that a large percentage of this increase is caused by increased traffic in non-OECD countries. So what we commonly refer to as Global South. So with this being the scene set, the question is, how do we work at GSZ or any other organization to face this issue? And this is where the second part of the name comes up, which is, of course, data. We need data to analyze the exact causes of this increase, to build our transport models and work on the right policies to help the global community, the countries, to move towards a more sustainable transport system, and of course to serve the needs of the populations in the countries to keep on moving, and even in these cases of the Global South, where mobility is growing, or the demand of mobility is growing, still advance into a sustainable transport system. And as I said, of course, this is done a lot in the sector. So we have many national, international organizations that work on this exact issue, gather data, analyze indicators, formulate recommendations. So for example, GSZ, or more specifically the Transport and Climate Change team I work at, this is exactly our daily work. So the question is, all of this data that's being gathered, this information that's extracted, where does it land? The answer is basically the following. It's this huge amount of PDFs that are constantly produced that ultimately contain all of this valuable information, this data and studies that are produced by these organizations. But in the end, this information is sort of saying for single use only, or has at least a limited lifetime, because by the end of the project, or when the report is released, usually ends somewhere in a drawer and is not really used anymore. And this is a behavior or an issue that we observe not only at GSS, but in many other project-based organizations and settings. So when we first tried to grasp this issue, we started to conduct interviews with individuals from other organizations, universities, NGOs, and they all reported similar problems. So in other words, this idea to build a transport data commons, as a third term of the word, was an issue or an idea to increase the lifespan and reuse of data. And this turns out to be not only a matter of open data ideology, but more specifically a matter also of efficiency in terms of time and also ultimately of costs. So back in 2022, when we started to conduct these interviews with individuals from these organizations, as I mentioned, we, sorry, I think I'm on the wrong slide. I wanted to move this one. We met for the first time with these individuals we interviewed in a workshop in Leipzig. It's the ITF, which is a big transport forum that's held every year in May. And this is where, for the first time, these ideas, these how to face these issues were brought to paper, and sort of the seed for the transport data commons was set. And basically, this is where we are today. So we are not an organization in this sense, but we're more of a, you could say, a birds of a feather working group consisting of individuals, also organizations, some with a mandate, some working really on their own time, and all pursuing this common goal of a shared data platform where all participating entities can both contribute and also access, of course, the data that's out there in the transport and climate nexus. So some of these organizations you see here may be familiar to you. I'm sure, for example, the European Commission or the UNECE is a UN organization. But of course, there are also a lot of others that are really specialized in the transport sector. So it is important to note again that we're not yet a formal entity, but of course our ultimate goal is to establish a TDC as such. So then looking a bit at the timeline, I would say that we've already achieved quite a lot, bearing in mind that, as I said, we just turned 3 years old in May now. So maybe some would say we're now ready for kindergarten. Sometimes it feels like that. So in the first year, we started really to build on this community approach. So we started to really gather individuals that would like to join this initiative. So this was all about community building. The second year was really starting to have regular workshops, starting to work on the concept, on prototype, to ideate how this portal could look like. And then in the third year is when we really started last year to really go into operations. So we started to work on a portal that could be sent out there. Thanks to some seed funding we got from UKAID through some projects called CCG and HPT, which allows us to finally build the TDC portal. This is where, of course, a big thank you goes out to the Utopian team. Joanna, you mentioned that a lot of them are there. I think I saw some of them too. So they really did a wonderful job last year in this really short time frame, building on what we had by then, this Figma prototype, which was basically just a click dummy with some ideas we had, and turned this into a really fully functional ckan platform. So lucky to have them here, and also in case there are any more technical questions coming up, I'm sure will help me to answer them. But coming back to the timeline, you see that we are, of course, now that we have the portals. Next slide, yeah. You see that we are currently in a very decisive phase. So after the portal was ready, we initiated sort of an internal beta testing phase where we invited members from the organizations in the TDC to start testing the platform, to start uploading some data sets. We launched some data population sprints where we really try to engage new organizations to upload their data on a common effort. Yeah, all of this in order to really fill this empty library we had with some books. That's the metaphor we use commonly in the TDC. So basically where we are now is, I summed it up in a few numbers here. So we have 400 data sets I checked the other day by 17 organizations. Some of them are listed here. We have 7 different topics defined with, of course, different weight in the portal, and we have a user base that's spread around the globe according to our Google Analytics. So closing this section, I would like to highlight once again that we're currently still in this transition from a beta testing phase to full operation. So yeah, there's the things that we're working on before we really get out there with the portal and start communicating on the larger scale. But this is intended to happen within the second half of the year. So we're looking at COP 30 in November, which is the UN climate conference. And around that date, it would be nice if we can have our launch event right in time also for the UN Decade on Sustainable Transport, which will start then. So the idea is that we offer some technical solutions from the TDC that could really help to fulfill the goals of this UN Decade. And until then, of course, we'll keep working on the portal, try to grow the TDCI community, and last but not least, of course, secure funding for further steps in the initiative. Okay, but now let's have a quick look at what the portal currently looks like. You can follow along. I will share my browser now, so stop sharing for a second. You can scan this code, or you can access the link down there. So you see how the portal currently looks like. One second. Yes.
Now it's the most interesting part.
Exactly.
So we are looking forward to it.
Yeah, I hope you can see the screen again.
Yes.
Perfect. Great. So again, if you want, I can also paste the link in the chat if you want to.
Yes, I already did that.
You already did? Great. Thank you. Okay. So again, when we started to ideate this portal, we had 2 really overarching use cases in mind. So of course, there are many more specific, but all of them can be more or less categorized into one of these 2. So one would be the one of really only data consumers, or a person, could be a student, could be a researcher, could be a NGO employee working on a study and with the need for some specific data from the transport sector. Maybe he or she is not really sure what sources are out there, what's the best they can use, and this is exactly the point where the TDC Commons would come up as a solution. So once the user's on the portal, of course, the first thing he or she will see is the search functionality, which is more or less the core, of course, of the portal. So here the user gets some options to either use some free search, use some filters to narrow down the search. So in this case, let's say the user wants to find out about vehicle sales data, not necessarily in a specific region. So we just type in the name, and we get a few suggestions already of data sets that are on the portal that could fit. You can also click on search and get a full list of results that are out there. So here you see what would appear for this specific search term. You get a list of entries with the organizations that publish this data. You get the publishing date, the publishing schedule, the region that applies. So in this case, we have worldwide, but we also have some regional data or country level data. In this case, Ethiopia, we have India, the US, Italy, and so really spread around the world. Then you can, of course, again, filter the results with different options. You can sort the results by different categories. And there, in case the user provided some keywords, they're also shown here. When you open an entry, you get an overview with the description of the data set. You can see some overall metadata describing the data set. When you scroll down, you even have some assistance for citations, so different citation formats, also some embedding for LaTeX. Then, of course, the dataset itself is also accessible. Even one can as a preview, so the user can scroll through the data, have a look at it before moving on to access the files, either as a download or by accessing it via the API. So the portal supports the ckan API, of course. So this would be one of the main use cases, of course, somebody who's looking for data and finds it via the portal. Then the second use case category, of course, would be one of the data providers. So there's some guidance here for data providers, how to what to bear in mind when they want to join, how to contact us, some submission guidelines. But it's important to know that a user, of course, needs to create an account before he or she can provide data to the portal. So, I mean, if you will recognize the avatar, that we're not having an own user administration or account administration on the TDC, but we use GitHub SSO. So the user would need a GitHub account in order to access the TDC. But once he's logged in, you can access the dashboard with some further functionalities. Currently, the timeline is loading, so you see that there's some current activity from today. People uploaded data sets. You can see your own data sets, organization data sets. In my case, as a system admin, I can also modify topics, which are, I think, groups in vanilla ckan. Organizations, and of course some guidance for the dataset approval workflow. So you see that there are some datasets pending approval. So I have some homework for later today. And of course some settings. And now a user that wants to add data is guided through this data submission form where he or she can add some general information about the data set and then decide if he or she wants to publish this data or keep it private for the organizations. With some note what this would mean, that this would go into the approval workflow, add some keywords if wanted. Of course, always the possibility to save as draft. Here on the right, you see that there's some, again, some guidance materials on how to create records in the portal from our documentation, some specifications from the standards we use, and of course the FAQ section. So in this case, I can't save the draft because I didn't provide the necessary information, but I think I have some data sets here saved from some testing I did a while ago. So in this case, this is a draft I created before, and I could go on working on this one, filling out the form. I think this should be some standard procedure. Yeah. Then, yeah, I think this is basically the second use case. There are, of course, some more features on the portal. So, for example, if a user wants to access country-specific information, then we have this geography page, which presents the data that's available for each country. So in this case, for example, we have a lot of information for the Asian region. This is because we are working with ADB, the Asian Development Bank, which are providing data for their countries. Also, currently we're working a lot on African countries. Malawi has a lot of entries. And yeah, the idea is that this is, of course, still growing. So I think that's all I wanted to share on the portal itself. So I think I'll go back to my slides. Don't know how I'm in time. If I have a few more minutes, I could.
Yes, you have. No worries about time.
Great, then I can share a few more slides on what's coming next in the TDC in general for the initiative. You see my slides again.
Yes, now, yes.
And just jumped over the slides as a backup in case the portal isn't working for some reason. But it did, of course. And now let's go over to some challenges we're facing. So, as already mentioned, for those of us who are working on sustainable transport or transport sector in general, whether it is on a local, national, or global scale, the data we need to do our work is often very hard or costly to obtain. So this is mainly because the data is neither accessible or of enough quality. So the first problem of accessibility is already addressed proudly by the portal we have in order to really provide this one-stop shop for data that's out there. But the TDC was actually born from an even bigger shared vision that we can reduce these heavy costs of data access and at the same time work on the quality of data, so enhance the quality of what is already out there. And the question is, how do we do that? So the answer would be not by providing more new or even bigger data, but to work on the data that's out there and make it fair. So in this case, this would mean findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So to use the rubric from the open science movement. And yeah, so as of the Transport Data Commons Initiative, we envision that this will be eventually an organization that leads a really big community effort to do so, to coordinate data curation, cleaning, harmonization, to increase transparency, and exposing metadata to promote and apply existing standards, and then to use these to bring together existing and new transport data. So all of these points work towards this quality dimension of the data. And of course, to reach this point, besides the infrastructure that's already out there, we want to build the tools and guidelines that are needed for this data work to turn out the way we expect it to. So we understand that in order to provide accessibility and high quality, the TDC must provide, as I said, a one-stop shop to browse and explore a very broad variety of data. And the TDC must also allow that at the same time the community of transport experts that are out there and use the data to share their knowledge and to work on these quality issues. And so to say, to overcome them together with us. And finally, of course, there's this question of presenting and visualizing data that we will be working on in the future. So in order to sum this up, here's a small scheme that's intended to reflect more or less what the Transport Data Commons is envisioned to be in its entirety from a more technical point of view. So large part of what is out there, the infrastructure, is already covered by this TDC portal that we have. So mainly this repository you see up here in the middle, and also the UI, the user experience part on the right. So what we'll be focusing on in the future, a part of what we'll be focusing on is to build what is left here on the bottom. So to work further on this community work, on pipelines, on tools that are intended to ensure the data quality and enforce an existing data standards. So by using these standards or these pipelines, the TDC wants to pull together data from as many public sources as possible and also guides data providers to work on the data sets on their own on the portal. So after that, we want to also apply shared standards to transform the data into formats that lead to interoperability of the data. And then finally, the idea would be to work on cleaning, harmonizing, and checking data to really produce high quality data sets with, of course, also clear links back to the original sources, so to have everything transparent on the portal. So if you want to learn more about this taxonomy, this process we designed, and please visit the link shown there with a few more details. Yeah, I think, but as an overview, I think that should be already, covering most part of it. And then to finalize the presentation, I have a few more links. So in case you want to find out more about the initiative itself, then please visit our landing page, UNICE landing page. Everything regarding the initiative itself, our mission, also a bit of a background story, how this turned out. So everything I talked about today is provided there with a bit more detail. Then, of course, if you want to read more about this more technical parts of our vision, we have the documentation about the tools we were working on. And of course, you can already subscribe to our newsletter, which you'll notice is not that active right now. So we're planning to, as I said, once we have our official launch and we start into full operation, we will also start communicating more about the newsletter. And until then, of course, if you have any questions, then feel free to contact us directly via this last link. And also here again, here's the QR code to the portal in case you want to keep trying out a bit. And yeah, I think that's it from my side. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this gave some of the intended insights on the Transport Data Commons. Thank you very much again to the Topian team for the great work. Yeah, with this, I would give back to you, Joanna. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Nicolas. Very insightful presentation, and thank you for the walkthrough of the TDC portal. It's very neat and very smooth. I love it. Okay, let's open the floor for the Q&A session.
Yeah, we got a question.
Okay.
Yeah, from Maria. In your ckan instance, I noticed that you are providing different citation formats. How do you handle versioning of the dataset and citations? How do you ensure that all updated versions of the dataset can be cited correctly?
Okay, yeah, I think this was a really tricky one. We've worked a lot on this with the Topian team. So to be honest, we don't have a lasting solution on this yet. So for example, also the author is currently more not clear somehow where to extract this information, as the only person that is mentioned mostly in the records is the contributor, and sometimes the contributor is not shown because the user can always opt to be not shown as a contributor to the dataset. So the citation is more of a let's say a draft that the user can use and would need to adapt, of course, based on the information that's provided on the portal on this initial sources. So in the case I showed earlier was, I think, a Zenodo record that was linked. So yeah, I admit that this is not fully worked out yet. But yeah, thank you for the question.
I don't see any other questions, Joanna.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll wait a little bit, but I have a question. I don't think you mentioned why did you choose ckan as the foundation of the TDC portal. Maybe you can explain about that. Why did you choose ckan?
Yeah, basically because it really fulfills all of these prerequisites we defined in this initial ideation part when we defined the prototype, how this solution could look like for really this one place for all data and easily accessible data. ckan was this open source solution that's out there, that's sort of the de facto standards, and we have included some examples in our research from the HDX, the Humanitarian Data Exchange, that already worked with ckan by then. We've also learned about other examples by now. The other day we were contacted through you by Energy Data Info, who are also working with ckan, and I think these are all great examples of where we want to head to in the future. And yeah, of course, to have on one hand this broad community of developers who helped us to reach this goal, and also in the future to be able to introduce further extensions to our portal as it is now, depending on user needs. I think that ckan really is the solution to reach all of these goals.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Okay, folks, do we have other questions?
We have 2 more questions from Marty and Claire. Oh, and also from Anders.
Okay.
Yeah, the question from Marty, what are the mechanisms you use to encourage the data contributions from different stakeholders? And what is the classification of your transit data? Are you focusing on public transport data or any relevant data?
Yeah, so to answer the first question about how do we really encourage data providers to offer the data, it's not that easy, because of course there are so many different organizations out there with different requisites in terms of licensing of the data, in terms of where they're currently at with their own portals. So, for example, we're working with Eurostat, who have a really great data browser already. In this case, of course, the interest for them to work on different portals, start sharing the data there is less than with other organizations that are maybe not that far advanced by now. So in this case, the solution we're approaching right now is to really offer different levels of involvement. So to really show that at this current stage that we're at, we're still working on the portal, designing the portal to really offer room for everybody to engage in designing the portal, decide on next steps, where to go to in terms of functionalities, in terms of expanding the UX on the portal. So the idea is to really encourage everybody who is working with transport data to see this as an opportunity to also in the future have a common portal to fulfill their needs that may come up. So yeah, that's currently I think the value we're proposing to the community. And regarding the second question, let me see in the chat if I can.
Yeah, the second question is the classification of your transit data. Are you focusing on public transport data or any relevant data?
Public transport, not only public transport. So public transport is one of the topics we have defined, but right now we're not really filtering data out in terms of this is something that's of interest to us or not, because in the end it's the user, the community who will be using the portal and not us. So every transport related data on emissions, on fleets, on public transport, it's all welcome currently. So we're not in a position currently to say this is not of interest to us. And yeah, we'll see in the future if there's it turns out to be any natural restrictions, but right now there's no need to do so now.
Thank you. We have another 2 questions from Claire. The first is, I noticed that you seem to have a way to review the data before publishing. Can you speak to how that was implemented? And the question from Anders, how large is a typical data set in terms of megabytes and gigabytes? And are they stored in the file store?
Yeah, regarding these 2 questions, I think some assistance by Dataopen would be nice, but yeah, talking about the publishing mechanism. So basically, when a user decides to publish data, the user is not an admin of the organization he's publishing data for, then this data will be sent to review to an admin of this data set or to a system admin. So we have some organizations which are not represented by any member of the organization itself. So in this case, this approval request will be sent to me or any other system admin. So the idea is here to have some 4i principles so that we can look together if these standards that we want to implement on the portal are fulfilled. Yeah, to really ensure some quality standards on the portal. I don't know if you want more details on the technical side. In that case, I would hand over maybe to, I don't know who's here. I think Joao and Leonardo worked on this feature. But yeah, from my side, I would leave it there for now.
I think maybe Dominic or Leo or even Lucas can provide more context. Particularly, I think Dominic and Leo have answered the technical side of things. Are you guys listening?
Yep.
Sure.
So in terms of a typical size, to be honest, I can't be sure of that. I haven't really checked it lately. Maybe others could know. But as far as I know, it's megabytes, not really gigabytes. And if they're stored in a file store, yes, we use a bucket. And we also have data that's pushed to data store that powers some interactive visualizations. So for example, you can build, it kind of like builds a query for you based on filters, and then it shows it on a table. Yep. So if others want to expand on that.
Just an R2 bucket on Cloudflare using S3 file store. And as it relates to the approval workflow, we did a custom implementation of that. Basically, the idea is that every time that a data set gets created, it's not created even though you set it up as public, it will not be public until an admin approves. And if there's an edit, an update on that data set, it will go back to being private until it's approved. But I think Dominic and Leo can give better details on the approval workflow.
Yeah, so this permissioning, it's handled by a S3 file store extension. Basically, whenever you access a file, it's actually giving you a pre-signed URL. It's a temporary access to that file. So this means that the user couldn't just share, for example, the link of a private, the resource of a private data set with someone else, and the person would be able to share that, for example. And yeah, since there's a proxy, it also applies the ckan permissioning. So you must be signed in with a user that has access to the resource so that you can generate this pre-signed URL to access the data. Yeah, with the approval workflow that we have, basically a data set can only go public if approved by a person with the proper permission. So until then, there's no way that someone without the permission can download the data.
So last chances, guys. Do you have more questions?
I think that's it.
I think that's it. Okay, I think we're great with time, and we can wrap it up. Thank you, Nicolas. It was very interesting presentation and great work. That's a wrap. So before we say goodbye, I just have a few closing notes. So if you want to have a talk at Ckan Monthly Live, you can fill out the form, which is available in our meeting notes document, or you can write an email directly to me. So normally, as you know, in August we have a break. So we have a speaker for next month. It will be Steven De Costa. And then we have a break, and then we will launch again in September. So from September, yeah, we'll be on the lookout for some ckan related projects, interesting ones. So let me know if you have something. You can suggest a topic, and we can accommodate it for you. So there is a special document. Link is available in the meeting notes document where you can add your suggestions. We have a newsletter, as I said in the beginning. You can subscribe in the meeting notes document on our website and on LinkedIn as well. If you want to get involved somehow in the ckan project, you can go to ckan.org/community and you will find all links that you might need. You can join the weekly ckan dev meetings. They're open to everyone and you'll be much welcome there. You can open a GitHub discussion. You can chat with us on Gitter. There are a variety of ways to get involved, so you can just go and check for yourself. And of course, if you want to stay in the loop and stay connected, we have social media channels. You can follow us on LinkedIn. Twitter is not so active already, as you might have noticed, but we're active on LinkedIn. And also you can subscribe for our YouTube channel. The recording of this session will be added there. So if you want to revisit the session or if you want to share it with your network, you'll find it on our YouTube channel. And as always, all the links will be available in the video description, including the presentation of Nicolas. And with that being said, I think that's it. Thank you for joining us today. And till we meet again, keep those data fires burning. Thanks, Nicolas, and thanks, everyone. And thank you for bearing with my voice.
Thank you, Jana.
Thanks,
I
everyone.
appreciate it. And
Bye.
thanks, Kate, for the help.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, you're super cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I'm gonna get a good
As well,
sleep.
you
Thank you,
wanna
guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.